Welcome to Not Your Basic Brunettes, where we, Devin and Katie, dive into all things girly and beyond. From sharing TMI moments to navigating life's chaos with humor and vulnerability, we're here to create a safe space for moms, single ladies, entrepreneurs, and corporate girlies alike. Grab a drink, get comfy, and join us as we laugh, cry, and connect through all of life's moments. Now, here are your hosts, Devin and Katie.
All right, well, welcome back to Not Your Basic Brunettes. This episode, we're going to discuss bad bosses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Let's get into this.
Yeah. Stealing your line, but don't forget to subscribe, follow us on
Yes.
Spotify, where we're at right now. And we upload these episodes to YouTube as well. And you can find previews and clips and that sort of stuff on Instagram.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Devin. So, I want to start kind of like from the beginning because I know everybody has not just usually one bad boss.
Yeah.
It's multiple over a lifetime. So what was your first job ever?
I mean, going way back, I was at 14, 15. I was a swim coach for Summer League. And then that translated into private lessons. And then um, lifeguarding was a long period of time. That was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like my summer jobs. But fresh out of school, big girl job, which is a graphic design internship um, in a place in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And to throw a twist on it, I didn't have bad bosses until recently during a certain period. I
Mm-hmm.
actually had really good bosses, and a lot of them were female, which is awesome. Or my direct report, it was usually my direct report was a male, and then the creative director or whatever, and then the marketing person, because I usually worked in marketing, would be a female. So with
Mm-hmm.
my first job, and of course me being naive and 24, being oh my god, that's so much
Great.
drama, and but I got to travel the fucking world. I got
That's
to
cool.
go to Hong Kong, which ended up to go to Thailand, and then I got to travel. I mean, to London once, and this sort of stuff for the job. But of
That's cool.
course, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back, you're you stay there for a bit. But of course, I'm I want more. I
Well,
want to
yeah.
level up.
Well,
And it's yeah. So it's that was really cool to have that fortunate of a first job experience,
Mhm.
which was really cool. And then moving on to the next job was, I had my creative director. He was from Denmark, so that was
Nice.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
And so I think each time I kind of got worse and worse bosses to start off with. Besides,
Mhm.
one um, was my friend that I worked with at my first job, so that was awesome to see her again. And she and I were the ones that kind of tag team together because she was a copywriter and I was a designer. She worked hand in hand, and it was cool to have
Mhm.
her as a boss because we were pretty close. Um, but yeah, I didn't have a bad boss really that affected until a couple years ago, right after COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it started out good, and then it was a good bad situation. My direct boss was great, and then the lady who was the creative director, we're just gonna call her Karen because we're all the bad bosses are gonna be
Karens.
Karens.
Always Karens. Always Karens.
Yeah. It just got worse and worse and worse.
Mhm.
And I think as you become a mom and an adult, where you feel not as you feel more equal to the people that you're working with, and an inferior superior things, you kind of
Mhm.
push back and fight for what you want. And a lot of times in corporate America, that's no,
Yeah.
you shouldn't do that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's been, and now I have good bosses, I would say, and I'm kind of my own boss in a certain way, which is nice. But yeah, we can get into the details of that later because
Yeah.
I feel like you have better stories than I do, or more experiences of bad bosses because you're amped about this. You're let's do this, bad
Let's just do
bosses.
this. I got bad bosses. So starting out, my first job was Little Caesars in
Yeah,
Castle Rock, Colorado.
nice.
How you doing? So that was a crazy job just because I was 15 years old,
Yeah,
high school kid, a lot of high school kids working there. Management was assistant managers were in their 20s.
hmm
And so no, lots of drama, lots of
yeah,
issues. The owner, we'll call him Hector, so changing names for the purposes. So I
yeah,
guess at the time, fine, but never really saw him. He just here on the
yeah.
building, did his thing. I had a few bigger managers who were a lot older.
hmm
This one guy named Jim. I'm pretty sure he doesn't work there anymore.
I hope
Jim was very old.
not.
He was very old at the
Okay.
time working there, and he looked like the Little Caesars dude, like
Aw.
pizza, like and had this huge mustache. Really nice guy, but he worked like 3 jobs
Aw.
and was trying to save like every money like that he could to
Yeah.
like retire someday. And him and his like Filipino wife were gonna like move to Mexico or something like that, with all their
Yeah.
bunnies and stuff. And so the poor guy, like sometimes he'd fall asleep in the office.
Aw.
I felt so bad for him. So we would just leave Jim alone. Like
No.
if Jim's asleep, everybody just leave him alone.
Yeah. Don't touch
Because
him.
his next shift will be at the gas station after this closes. Like he
Aw.
would literally just
Yeah.
like work and work and work and work. Next job after that, I had Wendy's, and of course, fast food's always big,
I've
lots
never
of
worked at
drama.
fast food.
Oh, it's awful,
Yeah. I can
awful.
imagine.
I don't recommend it for anybody.
Yeah.
For anybody. I mean, I know if it's a career path for some people, but it's definitely a lot of drama. Just like restaurants, like everybody's like sleeping with each other
Oh,
or
really?
has problems. Oh yeah,
So did you like
it's a hot mess.
cook any of the stuff, or were you more of like cashier?
Oh yeah, so Little Caesars, I cooked a lot in the back because, like, you're a high school kid. They don't want you like messing up the drawer or anything like that,
Yeah.
unless there was a big rush. You kind of help on the cash register. But there, we used to make a lot of pizzas, a lot of hot wings, things like that. Burn myself too many dang
Yeah.
times because the damn pots are so hot.
Oh yeah.
Wendy's, yes, I was a cash register person in the front, and then cooking usually like French fries or like nuggets. I'd pull them out of the fryer because I'd primarily be on the cash register there in the front
Okay.
or like trying to help out the fast food line.
Yeah.
After that, I tried to get into retail, and it was really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up working at a tanning salon for a long time. I was very, very tan. Very tan. This is before you learned about skin cancer.
Yeah, I went to tanning bed
it's not
once in
good.
college because I was like,
Yeah,
I don't tan,
I
and this
don't
makes me
tan.
hella claustrophobic to be in here, and it's not worth it, and I smell weird. Get me out of here.
Yeah, that job was like okay, but it sucked because like the locations they would put me at, they would be like dead.
Oh,
So then I would be there for like 8-hour shifts, and I'm
that's
like,
the worst. That was like lifeguarding when no one showed up to a neighborhood pool. You're like, I'm here for 8 hours by myself.
yeah, yeah.
What the hell do I do? Because that was
Me.
before like social media was really prevalent. Like you
Yeah,
could have
we
just
didn't
like
really
scroll
have
on
it
your
then.
phone.
Yeah, you couldn't be like there's Facebook kind of, but like
Yeah.
phones weren't like
Yeah, the
that
internet.
high
Yeah.
tech
Yeah.
yet, so they glitch and they take forever.
So you're like hoping someone would text you all day, and
Yeah,
you're like, maybe I'll read a
book.
book.
Yeah, and that would happen half the time as you read a book, or
Yeah.
sometimes I'd fall asleep in the tanning bed.
Nice.
Well, the door had a bell, so you go
Yeah, like,
bing,
bing.
and
Yeah.
you're like
Hello.
getting up. And it would like run out there, like,
Yeah.
hello, I'm just cleaning beds in the back, and you'd like have a rag, like a spray
Yeah.
bottle,
Just a line down your face.
Yeah. Literally, like, oh, I just ran into the door. Like, would you like to buy some lotion?
Always
Trying to make your
pushing the lotion,
sales.
I feel
I
like.
know. Well, unfortunately, that's like the only way they would make like certain commissions. So they always
Oh,
had to
okay.
sell the damn lotions, and it was just like nobody wants to buy the $100 lotion. It's just
No.
not happening.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen. After that, I went into more retail. Lady Foot Locker, Foot Locker.
Had a short stint in a shoe store.
Yeah.
And then I didn't quit and I didn't get fired. I think they changed management so much I just
Yeah.
fell off the
You're like,
schedule.
bye.
And talk about like loving shoes, and probably at Foot Locker too. Like
Yeah.
did you have like a back room just stock full of
Yes.
so overwhelming? And then you had a new shipment in and you had to like shuffle the
Shuffle.
entire thing
Yes.
around, and then you're panicking because it's like
Yeah.
your first week. You're like, I'm not supposed to bring the shoe back, so I have to memorize the number
Uh-huh.
and then find it on the wall and then remember their
Uh-huh.
size, and you don't want to come back out there and be like, what was that again?
Honestly, though, like when I worked at Foot Locker, most of the management would be the ones in the back because I think they just didn't want to like work the
Yeah.
floor, so they would like put us all out there so that they could just hide in the back.
Oh,
I'm
lame.
like cheaters. I
Yeah.
want to be in the back. I don't want to be in the front.
Yeah. The learning cash register system was always so
Yeah.
nerve-wracking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've had a few times where it was like short like $1 or $5. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh my god, it's awful.
Or like trying to do the math in your head and you're like, here's your
Yes.
change.
Yeah, here's your change, please. So, I'm like credit card, perfect.
Yep. Easy.
Debit, swipe,
Yep.
done.
Press a button.
It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was kind of our first jobs.
Yeah.
Now let's start with who is your first worst boss?
That is a good question.
And we can change their names for their
Yeah.
identity's sake.
I think it's okay. I will say on my first job, my creative director, he was a couple years older than me. He actually got the job because he dated my cousin, so like I knew they weren't together anymore, but we happened to like come on a family
Sleeping
reunion
up
with
the
us.
ladder.
So I was like, I know you because let me get into a job, give me an internship or
Mhm.
whatever. And we like hosted these conferences where we go to Vegas. So I've been to Vegas a few times for work, not my style, but glad I got to experience it on someone else's
Not
dime.
your style, but things always stay in
Yeah.
Vegas.
And so we would be up at the ass crack of dawn, like running these conferences, like
Oh
on your
yeah.
feet all day. And like he would just walk around acting all important and shit and
Yeah.
this sort of stuff. And I'm like doing all the work behind, of course. And then he comes up and acting all important and being like, you need to get this done. And I'm like, you're such a dick. Like, you're not doing anything except for like acting like you're cool and schmoozing these people while me and the other intern are
Mhm.
running around.
Mhm.
Um, I would say I had like worse coworkers than I did bosses, but like the main one was the Karen. She yeah, a job a couple years ago. Like the one time I only ever got fired was because of her.
Mm.
And they always make up excuses that your work is not this and this, and like I got motherhood pinned against
Yeah,
me, and
yeah.
like
Remember that.
you're not performing as well because you have your child or whatever. Like you can't use that against me.
That's what I said. You should have filed a lawsuit.
Yeah, I know. And it was like, I tried so hard and like kept trying to like advocate for myself, but I kept getting more work thrown at me, and like no matter what I did, it
Mhm.
was not good enough. And like being able to have to like read her mind, and sometimes it would be like a really nice interaction, and I'm like, ugh. This is literally coming today, like coming to work every day, like being like, am I gonna get in trouble? Am I gonna get fucked up? Like, am I doing this wrong? And
Mhm.
like that would suck. Like
Yeah.
it was awful. And it's so funny because it was like, why is this lady coming after me?
Mhm.
I'm trying to communicate with her as best that I can. And
Yeah.
she's like a principal of this smaller company, so she's got her head up her own ass, that sort of stuff. She
Mhm.
doesn't have kids, so she doesn't know. So
Love those.
yeah. And no matter like what angle I came after, it was just like I always got it shit thrown back on me, and I was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
what? I don't
I don't know what to
understand.
do.
I'm
Yeah.
normally a very good employee. Like I am showing up and trying every day. Like I'm sorry I can't be like literally perfect." And that's
Yeah.
what she was asking for. And then like members of her team would kind of like talk down to me too, and I was like, "Okay, this is not good." So they were
Yeah.
trying to push me out as I was trying to leave, but like I was like, I don't want to leave because I want to get severance if they do fire me, which they did end up doing because they couldn't give me what I wanted.
Mm.
I'm like, you mean support and more money if you're going to make me do 5 people's
And I have a
jobs?
teammate like everybody else does to
Yeah,
do
I'm
my
like,
job.
at least give me a copywriter. Like that's not my job. I'm a
Right.
designer. Like that's what you hired me for. Like
Yep.
copy was not in it. And it's so funny because I talked to like a psychic medium one time,
Mhm.
and she was like, "This lady has been following you for lifetimes," because
Ew.
like back in like the 1920s, apparently,
Ew.
believe what you want, but this is kind of a funny story of just like apparently I was this singer or something like that,
Oh my gosh.
and this lady thought I stole her husband, and I had no idea
You trollop.
that I know that like that was even the thing. And she was like, once you're done with this lady in this lifetime, you can get rid of her because she's been following you
You.
all of these lifetimes. I'm like,
Ugh.
oh, no wonder it felt way personal than it needed to be.
Ah.
Whether it's true or not, I like to believe a little bit of it is because
Oh,
it's
I'm so
like,
down with it. Yeah.
please give me a reason why this lady hates
Hates
me.
me.
And I've
Yeah.
never met you in person
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. I
Ugh,
felt that. I've had
yeah.
a few women like that working coworkers in those days. Like, why do you hate me? I didn't
Yeah.
do
I don't,
anything.
yeah, I don't understand that sort of stuff. Like, yeah. And then you go on like all this like corporate lingo and like try
Mhm.
your best. And I would even like send my emails through like chat GPT, like make this sound as professional
As
as fuck.
possible.
Still get the same responses unless I would be like, hey, here you go. Fuck it.
Like, great. Fuck it. I'm fucked.
Yeah. Just like, why did I try so hard when someone clearly didn't want me there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn people pleasing.
Girl, me, I used to do that all in my 20s, and now I'm like, I don't give a shit.
I know. I
So
need to get there.
it's hard. It's a lot of therapy.
I do therapy.
I told you it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work,
I'm
not just
working.
therapy. You have to do like outside of it. It's crazy. Like I told you, my sister was like, "You need to do a lot of work before
Yeah.
you can do an ayahuasca trip." I'm like, "Oh, yeah,
I
should.
know.
I
It's like
should."
always working. It's just never enough. Yeah. What about you? What was
Oh man. me start from the top there. So first
I
job,
feel like you have like a hit list, like
I
top 10.
do. It's bad. Well, again, working retail, there's always some crazy fuckers like working. Like it's just like, how the fuck did you get this job, and why are you the boss? Like,
Yeah, it's because
goddamn.
they just rotate people out so quickly that they're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, you're next in line."
yeah. Okay, so I don't remember actually this manager's name, to be honest with you. I just remember like his look, his face. He was a little crazy. So him and his wife were both ex meth addicts,
Oh,
and they were like recovered,
did they have their teeth?
sober, yes, but they're very like large and big, just like, and he had this like very thin ponytail.
Oh
The
yeah.
ponytail, the
Ugh,
little,
the low
the
low rise
little
bunny.
low, yeah, like just cut it off, let it go.
Yeah.
Um, he was definitely like he still had the acting and mentality of a meth head
Hmm.
because he would like get fucking like fired up and just like lose his shit. Be like, "Whoa, let's go! It's rush hour. It's fun." Like he would just like lose it. And
Like,
he's like,
dude, we're selling shoes.
"Yeah, we're like,
Chill.
dude, it's pizza.
Yeah.
It's $5 hot and ready's at Little Caesars.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to do with you." So like you just never knew what to expect on shift with him because
Yeah.
he was just always like lit on fire. Like he was so like dedicated to his job that it was like, bro,
Probably it's like his recovery was just
it
like,
is,
this
like,
is
it's
my
like his
life.
new addiction. It was
Yeah.
his new addiction. So he was, like, just crazy fucking weird fun to, like, work with, but also,
Yeah.
like, you were like, "What the fuck am I walking into?" Like, every time that you were on a shift. Um, and ended up leaving that job after the whole drama of one of the, like, 20-year-old managers robbed the store.
Oh Jesus.
Which again, they found out who it was, like, immediately
Yeah.
because he got fired, like, the day before they found out he was, like, drinking in the
Oh
back of the store. They
yeah.
found bottle caps. And, of course, who found it? The crazy
Oh
manager.
yeah.
He found the bottle caps and called Peter, the boss, or Hector, the boss, and was like,
His identity's been compromised.
sorry. I mean, hey, I would have fired the guy too. So,
Yeah.
but then, they, like I said, caught like the next day and whatever. And I was like, this place is like not so crazy. Like, I'm out of
Yeah.
here.
This is
Like,
just too
yeah.
much.
And then you had like other 16-year-olds they would hire and they're like smoking pot in the
Oh
back of the
yeah.
store, just like
Yeah.
it just got a little like weird. And sometimes you're just like, oh, okay. And then I was like closing shifts sometimes with
Yeah.
them. And there's like, we're like we're teammating to go to dump stuff in the
Yeah.
dumpster and
Sketch.
stuff, just like, ugh. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm like done with this place.
Yeah.
I had a few friends in high school that worked at Wendy's, so then I
Oh,
went
okay.
to Wendy's. Um, Honestly, it was fine there. This Wendy's was fine because it was in Colorado. It was fine. I didn't really have any issues, and then we ended up moving to Texas, so
Mhm.
any issues there. But then working at the Wendy's in Texas,
Oh, you crossed
I
Wendy's.
crossed Wendy's. So I was like technically like a senior employee because I had been there
Oh.
for like 2 or 3 years or
Oh
something like
wow.
that.
Okay.
It's dumb, but like
Yeah.
it was like because it's just like
Yeah.
transfer over through. Um, I had an awful boss that was like always trying to undercut you for pay,
Mm.
and I had been working there for like 3 or 4 months, and one of the managers literally tried to like take me aside and ask me if I would take $1 less than what I was taking.
Which is what minimum wage probably, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no,
What are you gonna do with
like
my dollar?
I wouldn't. What is that gonna do? What's that gonna do
Yeah.
for your pocket?
Yeah.
It's gonna affect me more because like I need a full time job since my parents had the '08 crash and like I
Yeah.
needed a job. Um, and then there was so much drama. Like all the line cooks were like inappropriate and wanted to like sleep. They sleep trying to sleep around with like all
Yeah.
the females. And it's really really annoying. You're just like, okay, I'm like 16.
Yeah.
Gross,
Cool.
gross. Let's move on
Yeah,
from
this
there.
is not
So
my future here.
not my future. No, no. And I think the worst bosses, I think, will be mainly for medical.
Mm.
Um, so before there was like union companies for healthcare, like UC Health or
Yeah.
Banner Health System. There were a lot more private practices before Medicare, like made their cuts in Obamacare and the whole bang.
Yeah.
There was a lot more private practice doctor owned businesses, and those, to be honest with you, were the worst
They literally
because
make TV shows about the drama for
correct. Correct. Reality TV could have come at a better time. Um, I worked for a dermatologist and won't disclose her name. Um, and her husband worked there as well in the
Mhm.
practice. And it was me and 3 other MAs, and one PA.
Yeah.
The MAs would constantly quit. Like I think she ran through 20 or 30 employees in one
Jeez.
year because she was that awful. Um, she would yell at her husband in one of the exam rooms, like if something was like messed up or whatever for procedures and
Yeah.
things like that. Um, you couldn't like take a day off. There was no like PTO pay. Like
Mm.
you hardly had any. Um, and then one time she tried to like rush me, charge me up, like kind of like rush at me, like saying
Oh,
that like this is my practice and you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do with it. You will
okay.
listen to what I'm telling you to do. And I was like, all I was trying to do was like clean instruments in between patients so that I could get out of there on time because I was like the early shift person. Like so many people had quit that I ended up finally getting the early shift, which was
Nice.
like 7:30 to 3:30.
Yeah.
So I could try get out of there earlier because it was in the middle of Dallas and it's hard. The traffic just sucks. Like you're
Yeah.
just trying so hard to like get out of there, and it would still take me an hour and a half to get home, and I live
Ugh.
like 30 minutes away
Yeah.
because it's traffic. Um, so and then the other time she hit me during surgery.
Oh, jeez.
So during surgery, you usually cut sutures and things like that. Like
Mhm.
during she's had did Mohs surgery for skin cancer and things like that, which I found very cool. I actually really loved dermatology.
Uh-huh.
So it's just really frustrating to be in this very hostile like
Yeah,
work
she
environment
ruined
with
it for
it.
you.
She ruined working for her. I still love dermatology and like surgery and things like
Yeah.
that, but like ruined that whole I think I worked with her only for like 9 months and I
Oh,
was
wow.
like, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
I just quit. I'm done.
Dang.
But she literally hit me during surgery. I was cutting a suture and she thought I was gonna cut her knot,
Mm.
and I wasn't. Like you slide when you're cutting a suture in surgery, you slide down the suture until you feel the knot, and then you cut above it so that you
Mhm.
don't cut the
Yeah.
knot. Well, she thought I was gonna cut her knot, and she went
Oh,
when I had the scissors in my hand, so scissors go flying,
jeez.
and I was like,
OSHA
"I'm
violation right there.
the hell out of here. I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous." Like,
Can't slap shit out of
I
my
was yeah,
hand. Yeah.
exactly. So I was like, "Strike that."
Yeah.
Then, I worked for my first ever MA job, I worked for an OBGYN, again, won't disclose her name. She would embarrass you in front of patients.
Oh.
Um, you'd be, like, terrified of the buzzer.
Oh, no.
There's a buzzer that you can hit in, like, every room, right? That, like, a light would light up and a sound, like, would go off in the
Okay.
hallway saying that, like, she needs you in a certain exam room.
Okay.
Well, being my first MA job, like you forget things and that practice was always busy and such a rush. Like you never hardly had lunch. You always were there early. You were always leaving late. It was like the worst
Mm.
job to be in. Again, never wanted to be an OB/GYN.
Yeah.
But it was my first job. So I'm like, I'm trying to make the best of it.
Yeah.
And she would embarrass me. Like she would call me in the room and be like, well, you forgot to put a pad on the table
Mm.
for my patient. And the best part is the drawer of the pads is literally right next to
Would a
her knee.
patient be in there with you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh
gotta be
yeah.
awkward for the patient.
Oh yeah. So then
Jeez.
I'm literally coming right next to her, pulling open the drawer, taking a pad out and putting it on the counter,
Mm.
and then leaving the room so she could finish her exam or whatever else she's talking about with the
Yeah.
patient.
No wonder she was always behind.
She's always behind. Always behind. Patients would get so irritated and so mad because that's the one I worked at the front desk for.
Yeah.
And I was like, trying to like calm patients down because they're
Yeah.
pissed off or they're waiting for an hour to see
Yeah.
their provider. Um, we also had what was it? Oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. Oh, other times she would try to and just embarrass you for other things. She'd be like, one time that one of the pillowcases was put on wrong,
Mm.
where like tags of a pillowcase is sticking
Yeah.
out, and you know you should put them inward so nobody knows. And it
Yeah.
wasn't me.
Yeah.
And of course, she pulls me into this room, and she's like, "Did your mother never teach you how to put on a pillowcase?"
Did your mom ever teach you how to be nice?
And I was like, "I didn't put that pillowcase on."
Yeah.
And yeah, tags go inside. Thanks.
Yeah. Got it.
Walk back out of the room. Like I just like, would constantly just embarrass you. I quit on her in a day and worked transferred, like, to another
Jeez.
doctor's. I was like after I'd been there, I think, almost a year, and I was finally got a new job, and I was like,
Yeah.
"I can start immediately with you guys. I'm leaving this place. Like,
Done.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I will not work my last day over it." And then we in the MA got into it all the time, and,
Mhm.
the practice manager was no help because she was the doctor's cousin and whatnot, so it's just,
Mm.
like,
Yeah.
worst,
Dang.
worst there. And then okay, the worst
Okay.
was the allergist doctor.
Oh.
I literally worked for him for 3 months.
You're allergic to him, you say?
Oh my God, was I ever. Okay, so
Broke out in hives.
this man was probably like in his 70s already,
Uh-huh.
late 70s, and had his own practice, of
Mhm.
course. He would play classical music,
Mhm.
and when a patient would complain about the classical music, he would purposely go into the room where the system is and turn up the volume
Oh my God.
on purpose. He didn't give he was like,
Yeah.
"I don't give a fuck. Mer, turn it up." So then it's like blaring in like all the exam rooms, and we're all
Yeah.
like,
What the hell?
because we're like, we still have to talk to patients, and
Yeah.
it's awkward, and you have this huge orchestra symphony like going
Oh.
off in your head. You're like, "How is your day?" Like, duh.
Yeah.
And then he would draw pitchforks on patients' charts
Ugh.
that he hated or like were high maintenance or like all that kind of stuff. So he would draw a pitchfork on them. So he
Ugh.
knew like this is the patient I don't like. It's annoying, like drives me crazy. Like I'm dead serious.
Bedside manners much.
He was awful. And then the last straw with him was he embarrassed me in front of the entire clinic.
Mhm.
He was so old school that he was still working on paper charts, even though most providers have now switched
Yeah.
over to medical record, like electronic
Yeah.
medical records. He was so old school. He's like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So he was like, we take every single piece of paper and scan it into the system.
Yeah.
So patient charts were literally just scanned documents, constantly scanned documents.
Pull out the fax machine while you're at it.
Right.
Faxing on
It was
over.
literally that. It was literally that. And then I had like missed a piece of paper or
Mhm.
something in this patient's chart. And I don't even know if it was me who saw them last or someone else. It just wasn't in the chart for him to like
Yeah.
look into. And he just berated me in front of everybody.
Oh.
Like in like the stations, it was like MA station in the middle, exam rooms, the PA's desks are right here. Like everybody
Yeah.
can see you. It's all out in the open.
Oh.
And he was just literally standing there berating me in front of all the MAs, all the PAs, patients that were being brought back, like
Jeez.
just in front of everyone. And I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Put my letter of resignation on that desk, and I was like,
Done.
see ya.
Yeah.
We're done.
Ugh.
So yeah, it's super fun.
No wonder you're not a people pleaser anymore. Just like I've been through my fair share
I
of
have been
fuckery.
through it.
I'm
Yeah.
done.
Well, again, it's like you treat people like this. Eventually, they're gonna grow some tough skin and be like,
Yeah.
"Go fuck yourself."
Yeah.
How about that? And then what do they say? They're like,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I'm not gonna sit there and stand for it anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's great because most doctors' offices unfortunately had to unionize after all this.
Yeah.
So now there's a bunch of HR departments and all kinds
Ooh,
of stuff.
HR.
I know, but at least like there's somebody to
Yeah.
kind of back you up because in private practice they do whatever they want. And they're like, fucking quit. I don't give a
I
shit.
know.
I'll hire someone else.
HR is so interesting because like most HRs that I've worked with, they really only look out for the company. Like the one that I had the bad boss in, it was like, you know, you and everybody else was like to call to HR. I'm like, they're not protecting me. They're
Yeah.
protecting their
Her.
bottom line and her because
Mhm.
she's high up in the company.
Yeah.
You know, even when I like would talk to her on these like meetings or whatever, um, you know, she would basically go through this like list of bullshit of like, you know, how can we help you better? And like go through the complaints that they had, which were like super minuscule. I'm like, how can you help me better? I've literally told you guys how to help me,
But you won't.
but you won't.
Yeah.
You know, you're just going through the steps so the paperwork looks good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I mean, I know people that love HR, but I would
Yeah.
hate to be in HR.
Oh, I would hate to be in HR. I would never take a job in HR.
Yeah.
No. It's
It's a
almost
lot.
as bad as PR.
Yeah. It's a lot of paperwork too. I'm like, benefits? I don't, you still have to explain it to me even though this is like my
Literally.
20th job. What? What do I
What do
apply?
I apply
Do I
for?
have a zero dependents? How many dependents? What
How do
are
I fill out my
taxes?
W-2?
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah. No. Ugh.
Okay, so going off of worst bosses, who is your best boss? Like, who would you say out of all your bosses you've ever had?
Hmm. That's a good question. Because I like change jobs every 2 years.
It's okay, I do
I
too.
have yeah.
You've seen my resume.
Yeah. Like if it doesn't fit, I have to drop some off now. I would say like right now, who I'm contracting for, you know, I contracted with them for 6 months and then they had budget cuts, but now they've pulled me back on. He's been great. He's a creative director, you know, and super compassionate, super kind, like, actually a good creative director doesn't take himself, like, overly seriously, it's not his word against any, it's, like, very understanding and very personable and, like, does a good job,
Mhm.
so I said I definitely like working with him. Honestly, I would say the most creative directors that have been males for me
Mhm.
have taught me more than the females, which
Mhm.
is kind of sad because it's like, you wanna look up to a lot of the females. Some of they're more of the, like, the marketing managers, I would say, than
Mhm.
the creative directors. Um, but then there's that awkward, like, little bit of competition because 'cause I've been in a job
Yep.
before where I kinda had more experience than the creative director did,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, "Okay, you don't even come from a design background, like, how are you in this position?" But
Mhm.
I still have to sit there and listen to you critique my
Yes.
work, like, I'm trying to learn
Mhm.
from what you say.
Right.
But yeah, I still think about my first boss, on my first job. Her name was Sarah, and she was from England. Um, yeah, and she taught me a lot because she pulled me under her wing type thing of like she was the marketing manager. So, from internships doing whatever, and then eventually by the time I was leaving, I was helping her do, conference budgets and kind of running the entire conference.
Mhm.
Creative and all that sort of stuff, and she let me do that, like, she gave her, like, trust in me
Yeah.
to, like, "Okay, here, I've taught you how to do it, you know, I'm gonna do my job. I've taught you how to do this," that sort
Yeah.
of thing, and just very sweet overall. I remember she was pregnant during, one of my years there, and she was just like you could tell the day before she came in to have her baby, I was like, "Oh my god, you're about to, like,
It's coming.
explode,"
It's
I'm
coming.
like 24 years old, I'm like, "Oh my god," like, no, but she was very sweet, she's still working there, so yeah, I would say I do have, like I said, pretty good bosses, it's just been
Mhm.
other employees. So I would say the one that I have now and then, like, my first one, kinda bookend
Okay.
each other. What about
Okay.
you?
Honestly, I would have to say I loved my last boss before I moved to Colorado,
Mhm.
Latasha Rivers. I'm gonna give you a shout out because I love you. Still love you, and we follow each other on Facebook. Um, she hired me to work in a family practice office, and I loved the office, honestly. I worked there really, really hard. It was a brand new family practice, a brand new doctor who just came in from California,
Mhm.
and, that practice, she kinda gave me the reins to, like, do my thing.
Yeah.
Like, I was the lead MA, I set up everything in the back that I needed to do, I took care of the patients, I
Mhm.
trained, externs, things like that. Like, I love when a boss gives me the reins to do something because I can show you my worth and,
Yeah.
really do what I do best,
Yeah.
and that to me is worth more than
I was
anything
gonna say, I feel like our
because
stories have similar, like, you let me do my job
exactly,
and guide
exactly, like,
you.
no
Yeah.
micromanaging, like, very chill, we would crack up because days when Dr. Goki was in the office, she'd be playing, like, hood trap music, like, over the loudspeakers, and I'm like, "Throwing up on a Tuesday," like, literally, like,
Yeah.
just blank we're, like, working, having a
Yeah.
great time, like, no one's bothering each other, she's getting her work done in her office, I'm getting my work done in my
Yeah.
station, the front desk is doing her like, we're chilling, we're all
Yeah.
vibing, it was a small practice, we were all 3 of us were doing a great job, like,
Yeah.
just as much as we could, and there were some long days there, but I enjoyed working with them,
Mhm.
and I didn't mind enjoying working with them until I had to, like, move, and then I was, like, super
Oh,
stressed because I was, like,
no.
trying to get my house ready, and I was like, "I'm
Yeah.
stressed and I'm working so hard." But honestly, I did. Like, I loved the fact that she could just let me take the reins and do
Yeah.
things. Like, the MAs that I did internship with now are off on their new careers and their new lives, and I still follow them on
Yeah.
Facebook and things like that, and a lot of the interns and whatever that we ended up being like, some of them are really good friends.
Yeah.
So, really did love that, and I hope she gets to continue on doing that with other people.
Oh, yeah, I bet she
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
No, I love when you create, like, your work family and then you leave a job and you're like, "Oh, I don't
Oh.
ever hang out with this person that I hung out
Yes.
with all day, every
Yes.
day," and you're like, "Oh, how are you doing?" Like,
Yes.
you share so much. I remember my first job, with the girl that ended up becoming my boss at another place, Stephanie, but, like, we would just, be chatting each other, on Teams or Skype or whatever, just talking shit, talking about our
Yeah.
dating life,
Yeah.
this sort of stuff, just, like, shooting the shit, and then it's like, "Okay, bye." Like, you don't
Yeah.
hang
See
because
you later.
she was a couple of years older than me, so she's not gonna come hang out with she was, like, in her 30s,
Yeah.
and I was in my mid-20s. She's not gonna come hang out with me, but, like,
Right.
we were equals in the workforce type thing, so it's always
Yeah.
fun to, you know, have relationships like that. I feel like that's the one thing I really do miss about, like, working in an office
Yeah.
is having those relationships.
Mhm.
I mean, now it's just me you have, relationships over Skype or whatever,
Yeah.
but
It's not the
it's
same.
not
I
the
feel
same.
that. Yeah.
Back in the day when you actually go out to lunch and do something, or
Yeah, exactly.
or you
Exactly.
find somebody that's around your age and you go out with them afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a fun part of it. Um, you kind of mentioned it, touched on it, like, what makes a good boss is, someone that lets you do your job. Like,
Exactly.
what are the things in your mind like makes a good boss?
Honestly, what makes a good boss, I mean, things have changed so much over the years that
Hmm.
it's frustrating because so much more of management has become such a
Oh
micromanager, like
yeah.
in healthcare. It used to be so much more lax before COVID. Like I had another manager at that time. She used to like let us make up our hours.
Mm.
We were able to kind of fluctuate just a little bit. And, nothing crazy outside of working hours. But when we like had a doctor's appointment like at 4 o'clock, can I leave a little early and then take shorter lunch breaks so that I could, make up
Yeah.
my time? Yeah, sure, not a problem because we had work to do. They had a lot of work to do at a
Yeah.
different family practice office. But so it's like, yeah, you can justify what you're doing because
Hmm.
again, now with electronic medical records, they can actually see everything that you're touching and doing in there. So it's not
Mm.
like you're like, oh, I'm working, but you're not, like, touching like, if you actually have to, like,
Yeah, they can track
prove
you.
it. Yeah, they
Yeah.
can track it, see what you're actually doing. Um, the fluctuation of that, um, I would say the work family life balance,
Yeah.
when they're understanding of that, because that's another frustrating thing, like you said, with
Yeah.
your boss, like, she didn't have kids, so she was like, "Well, not a problem, not my
Yeah. I had to
problem."
put my phone on silent throughout the day because, like, she was East Coast and I was getting emails coming at me at like 4 a.m. in the morning. And I'm
Yeah,
like, what are you doing?
yeah. You're like, "I
Chill,
have"
bitch.
yeah, I'm like, "I'm not awake yet. I haven't started my shift."
Yeah.
That's another thing, respecting that personal private space
Yeah.
too, like, one thing with private doctors too that was hard is, like, to respect that boundary of
Oh
not
yeah.
working in the office. I had a couple surgeons I worked for that back then, same thing, private practice, and I used to do their on-call hours, so it was just constantly, like, ding, 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 my phone. I would have to
Oh
put it, like, on silent for a certain amount of time because 'cause I'm like, "I'm literally not at work.
yeah.
Unless this is an on-call call, like, please stop, like, texting me, stop calling me. Like,
Yeah.
I want some personal time." That job was very stressful because it was, like, on call every single day after
Oh
work
yeah.
and working a 9 to 10-hour shift depending on however long it was at that office. Like,
Jeez.
it was a very I needed the money at the time, so,
Yeah.
like, I was like, "I'd take the money," but it was so stressful, and I worked there for a year and a half, and I was like, I'm burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So, yeah, a good boss with that. Also one that gives you, like, props for, like, your work and,
Yeah.
like, an actual good review.
Like, you're
Like
not scared when they call you into your
yeah,
office, like, "I wanna tell
I
you
wanna talk
something."
to
You're like, I'm
you.
getting fired."
Yeah, or, like, they do your review and they give you, like, an excellent review, like, for
Yeah.
your job. Like, that's messed up. Like, people when they just, like, shice people on their reviews, even though they're, like, the best worker, and they're like,
So yeah,
satisfactory."
the last job that was the bad boss job, you literally had to write your own review, and then they would
Ugh,
review what you wrote,
barf.
and you're like, "What?"
Just barf,
Yeah, like,
barf.
that's so much work to
Mhm.
do for you to tell me that I it's like kinda almost like I feel like gaslighting you. It's like, "No,
Yeah,
you think you're doing a good job, but I don't," or "You it's okay."
yeah.
Like, "No, why don't you just sit down and have a conversation with
Patient with
me?"
me. Yeah. I'm not
Instead
gonna
of me
gaslight
writing
myself in a paragraph.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, "Fuck, I had to remember every detail of a job that I did a good job on."
Yeah, and
Like,
it's
I
so
do so many of
yeah.
jobs at once.
And again, your projects and yourself should show that. So it's like,
Right.
why should I write a paragraph about myself? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't make
You should know
sense.
me better than this.
Yeah, that's one thing. So what do you think now? Like what should bosses like do? What do you think that they should take from their employees? Like you know what I mean? Like what like criticism? Because like I feel like bosses should be reviewed by their employees, not their higher
100%.
up person.
Yeah.
Yeah, because 'cause I'm like, of course, their higher up person is gonna just see whatever they've reported,
Yeah.
not what the whole faculty that they're, like, overturned
Yeah.
is, like, actually seeing in real life and what they're actually doing and how they're managing it.
Yeah. I think they're too afraid to do that because there will be unhappy people in there.
Yeah,
That's like the they always say like good employees will be the first ones to leave in
Yeah.
like a toxic environment. Like if you're
Yeah.
going to be a toxic work environment and think, all these harsh rules are going to keep people around, it's like, no, you're losing good
Mhm.
employees. Obviously, the biggest red flag, like when I'm looking at a company, is like, what is the turnover rate?
Yeah. Oh,
You
absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
like why, or the other red flag too is like, slowly learned after this job was like, oh, we treat you like family.
Uh,
Fuck
uh,
no. I don't want
Nobody,
my
if
work life to be
anybody ever
family.
says that, you fucking leave that job
Yes.
immediately because they don't treat you like family the
That's a
fuck
that's a way to
whatsoever.
abuse you, that's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no.
Absolutely.
Like, the job that I have now that I was contracting with, end of last year too, it was just like, "You got kids, we got kids, block off your calendar and the
Yeah.
times that you're not
Yeah. That's what
available."
I'm saying.
If you can't answer me right away unless if everything's a fucking fire, then your business is not running well,
Correct.
you
That
know?
means that there's something else going on,
Yeah.
not just you.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like you have too much control. Like if your business can't run by itself for a
yeah.
day or, 5 hours for the person to get back, then you're
Yeah.
doing something wrong. And it's like I think a lot of people get leadership wrong in a way that they need people to fear them,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and be superior. And I think a good leader is taking, like you said, like taking advice and criticism and information from the people that you're giving your information out
Yeah.
to, you're quote unquote mentoring, because you that's the level of, am
Yeah.
I doing a good job, am I leading these people to see, like, you would want them to want to achieve a higher status than you,
Yeah.
and to like
Absolutely.
blossom off into, not like they're coming for your job,
Right. Because you're in
Uh,
your position unless you decide you
exactly.
wanna move up. That's
Yeah.
that's your prerogative. It's
Yeah.
not, don't assume everybody's out, that's one thing too. Don't assume everybody's out to get your job,
Yeah.
because some people may not be aspiring to have your specific job. That's
Yeah.
one thing that drives me crazy too, is like, I felt like my old job in oncology, I wanted to move up because, like, I got my degree in
Yeah.
marketing, healthcare management, blah, 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 and it was, like, constantly, like, every single job that I'd work with for UC Health, it was like, "Oh, well, you could shadow this one,
Hmm.
supervisor for, like, this long to get experience, and then I want you to take these green belt classes, and then I want you to take these management classes,
I
and
was
then"
like, did you have to do this?
yeah, and then they're like, "And then you can get into a supervisor role, but usually you have to hold a supervisor role for at least 2 years before you then get a man." It's like,
Huh?
I've been doing this for 13 years.
Yeah.
I have more experience than some of the people that you have as a supervisor or a management.
Yeah.
So why do I have to now do another 5 to 6 years of other stuff before you're gonna let me be in management?
Yeah.
That makes no
And
sense.
some people, like, people would always ask me like, what is your career path? And like the logical step for
Right.
designers, like creative directors, like that's the top end. And I'm like, I don't ever really aspire to be a creative director because it's
Yeah.
like you don't do as much design hands-on work. So
Right.
like I'm not trying to take your job. And as like someone who is had more experience in the industry, it's like I'm looking to you to learn from you.
Mhm.
Like I expect part of the job is feedback, criticism, and stuff like that, but like in a good way or challenging me. Like I had one working freelance recently where it was just like this logo was not clicking, and I told him, I was like, I'm struggling so hard with this, like it's
Yeah.
not clicking for some reason. He's like, sometimes it just doesn't come intuitively,
Yeah.
very nice about it, instead of being like, well, you're just missing the mark, blah, blah, blah. And we finally got there,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Sorry, this took so long." I was like, "No, thank you for pushing me
Yeah.
because otherwise I would just been like, it's not working. I give up."
Yeah.
It's like someone that will kind of nudge and push you along to be like, "Okay, well, think about it in this way, or try this way, or give it another hour, or take a
Mhm.
break and come back." That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Have that sort of compassion. Is like you probably were there once too.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like how
Exactly.
did you get to where you were because you had a good leader boosting you up instead of being like just telling you everything that's wrong.
Yes.
It's like, that's
Yes.
not helping
And
people.
that's the worst part too. I feel like management should almost take, like, we called it burnout classes at in healthcare,
Yeah.
because after COVID, there's a lot of burnout.
Yeah.
Everybody was just like, "Fuck this job, I hate this things."
Yeah.
Couldn't hire people, couldn't fire people, like,
Yeah.
because it's COVID. Like, we're on a hiring freeze. Like, half of us had to take half shifts just to keep us employed, so they wouldn't fire us for not, having
Mhm.
too many
Mhm.
employees on the job, and they couldn't, like, justify the pay,
Yeah.
because we weren't seeing patients in the office for a certain time, and it
Yeah.
was a lot. So it was like a lot of burnout happened with COVID, and I feel like managers should do the same thing. I feel like managers should be, or bosses should be, required to take a burnout course
Yeah.
to realize, like, hey, being a dick is not really the best way to motivate your employees.
Yeah.
Like, how did you feel at this time? And how did you feel when
Yeah.
you were them? It's like you need to get that empathy back. It's frustrating
Yeah,
because, like,
for sure.
the empathy gets burnt out on you so hard, and then you end up being a bad boss. And it's frustrating because until somebody points it out or fires them, it doesn't change.
Yeah. And I mean, a little bit of empathy goes a long way.
Yes.
Like, we're not asking people to be like, oh my God, you're doing the best job ever every
Yeah,
single
like,
day. Like, hey,
yay!
superstar. It's like,
Exclamation point, exclamation point.
yeah, like a little encouragement, a little positivity goes a long way for people
Yeah.
of just like, hey, I really appreciate you doing that. Or like, you did
Yeah.
a good job. Like, details of why someone, you don't have to do the review of paragraphs or whatever. It's just like
Yeah.
that sort of, like give someone some sort of encouragement or acknowledgement that
Absolutely.
they're doing a good job, because I'm sure most people just aren't going to work being like, I want to do a fucking bad job.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm trying, we may like begrudgingly go there and be like, oh, I don't do this, but like you're still trying
Yeah.
hard,
Exactly.
or
Exactly.
if someone is falling behind, instead of being like,
You're falling
harsh on them,
behind.
be like, check in and be like, hey, are you all
You're
right? Are
good.
things
Yeah.
going on? That sort of stuff,
Exactly. And a lot of times it's just something personal going on that's just in their way. And that's,
Yeah.
they're having a hard time dealing with it. And then it, affects their work. Everybody does. There's always times when
Yeah.
everybody has something personal going on in their life. And then
Yeah.
it's like, I'm dealing with this right now, and I'm trying to get back ahead, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Okay, great. Give them a little leeway, or
Yeah.
help them, see if you need to offer them support.
Yeah. How can I help ease this or something? I mean, that's one of that job, the bad job was kind of one of the reasons that spurred on me trying to figure out if I have ADHD,
Yeah.
because I was like, I don't understand why I'm missing some of these details, because I was
Hmm.
so burnt out from being, and essentially had my baby. Excuse me. So mom brain on top of like the fear of going into work every day and just
Yep.
being like, I'm gonna fail,
Hell.
and
Yep.
just like being on the edge of a nervous breakdown because that perfectionism kicks in,
Uh-huh.
and then you're hard on yourself and you forget one thing and that's highlighted and magnified, and you're just like,
Yeah.
I can't do any of this. And then
Absolutely.
you get a good boss that's like, I was yawning one time on the phone with this guy in freelancing. He's like, you need to go take a nap. I was like, I would love
I
to,
would love to.
but I gotta pick up my kids after this. It's like
Yeah.
that sort of, just a little bit of that went a long way of like, hey, I feel seen
Yeah.
for being tired, instead of being like, I'm on 24/7 and just
Yeah.
like a
Or they're like,
robot.
"Am I boring you while you're yawning?" And you're like, "No, I'm just tired."
I know. And he's, yeah, it's just like, especially women apologizing
Apologizing.
for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. That's something I'm really used to be really bad at. My sister was like, "Stop saying you're sorry."
I know. I correct people all the time. My friends and sisters will do that too. But then I'm over here being like, sorry,
Yeah.
we're good. Then my little kids are like, sorry, mom. I'm like, you don't have to
You have to be
apologize for
sorry. I
this sort of
know.
stuff. I'm like, oh,
I know. Kai had a little bit of that for a while. He'd be like, "I'm sorry, mom." I'm like, "For what?" Like, it'd be like random too. And
yeah.
I'm like, "Why are you sorry?" "I'm
Yeah.
sorry." I'm like,
It's
"You don't have to be
because we
sorry."
just turn
I
around and
know.
say sorry for everything. Sorry, sorry, sorry. It's like, God,
I think it's too
stop.
like what you said, like stepping on the dog. You're like, "I'm sorry."
I know. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to crush your toe, but you're in my way.
You're like, "Poop."
Get out.
All right. Well, wrapping up this episode, I know that we will be heading out for the next week. And what is our topic that we're going to pick for next week?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Do we want to jump into motherhood, or do we want to talk about friendships? I feel like I said that weird.
I think let's jump into motherhood.
Motherhood?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, we would love to hear your comments. We would love to have topic episodes that you guys want to hear about. Again, please follow, like, share with your friends, share with your
Yeah.
boss, share with your maybe not this episode, but
Yeah.
Awesome.
I know my mom was like, what do you guys talk about? How do you come up with ideas? I was like, we have a shit ton of
We have a
ideas.
shit ton of ideas.
And I'm talking to my best friend, so yeah, I have lots to talk about,
I know. I told him, I was like, we have like 41 episodes. He's like, 41? I'm like, yeah, so far. I mean,
Yeah.
just comes on the top of your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, if there's anything you want to hear about, let us know.
Yeah.
So,
All
all
right.
right. Well, let's wrap it up, you guys, and we'll see you next time on Not Your Basic Brunettes.
Bye, guys.
Bye.